Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. The world is asleep, and you're alone on the night shift. The lights flicker, the air feels heavy, and every creak, every whisper in the darkness makes your heart race. You tell yourself it's just your imagination. But what if it's not? Welcome to 5 true night shift horror stories, real, bone chilling accounts from people who faced the unthinkable while working the graveyard shift. These stories will make you question what lurks in the shadows when the world goes quiet. So, grab a blanket, lock your doors, and let's dive into the terror. But fair warning, you might not sleep tonight. Story 1: The Phantom Janitor. Our first story comes from Emily, a 28-year-old nurse who worked the night shift at St. Agnes Community Hospital in rural Ohio. Built in the 1940s, the hospital had a reputation among staff for being unsettled. Nurses spoke in hushed tones about unexplained footsteps, doors slamming shut, and the occasional glimpse of figures in empty rooms. Emily, a pragmatist, dismissed these as tired minds playing tricks until a frigid night in December 2019 shattered her skepticism. I'd been at St. Agnes for 6 months, and the night shift was always quiet, especially in the pediatric wing. That night, no kids were admitted, so it was just me in that part of the building. Sarah, the other nurse on duty, was in the ER on the opposite side. Around 3 a.m., I heard this scraping sound, like a mop being dragged across the floor. It was rhythmic, deliberate. I figured it was Tom, our janitor, who usually cleaned around that time. But the sound was coming from the pediatric wing's locked hallway, which no one was supposed to access. Emily called out for Tom, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. The scraping paused, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. She unlocked the door, her hands trembling, and pushed it open. The hallway beyond was pitch black, the air icy. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing. No mop, no bucket, no Tom. She laughed nervously, convincing herself it was her imagination, and turned to leave. But as she did, the scraping started again, directly behind her. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The sound was right there, like someone was standing inches away, mopping the floor. I screamed, "Tom, is that you?" But there was no answer. My flashlight started flickering, and I saw it, a shadow moving along the wall, tall and distorted, like it was wearing a long coat. It wasn't attached to anything, just there. I ran back to the nurse's station, slammed the door, and locked it. The scraping followed, getting louder, until it stopped right outside the door. Emily stayed there, barely breathing, until the morning shift arrived at 6 a.m. When she told Sarah what happened, Sarah's face drained of color. She revealed that Tom had called in sick that night. No janitor was on duty. They checked the security footage later that day, hoping for answers. The tape showed Emily walking down the hallway, her flashlight beam steady. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, faint but unmistakable, was the silhouette of a tall, thin figure, gliding silently, a mop in its hands. The footage cut to static at the moment Emily reached the locked door. What was in that hospital with Emily? A ghost, a hallucination, or something far worse? Emily quit a week later, unable to face another night shift. She later learned from a retired nurse that the pediatric wing was once a tuberculosis ward, where a janitor named Elias died in a freak accident in the 1950s. Some say he never left, still cleaning the halls he once tended. Our next story takes us to a darker place, so hold on tight. Story 2: The Warehouse Watcher. This story comes from Mike, a 35-year-old security guard who worked at a distribution warehouse in Dallas, Texas in 2021. The facility was massive, over 1 million square feet, and Mike was often the only soul on site during the night shift. Workers had long whispered about the place, claims of being watched, hearing voices in the aisles, even seeing shapes in the darkness. Mike, a no-nonsense guy, thought it was all nonsense, until a night in August that turned his world upside down. I'd been at the warehouse for a year, and sure, it was creepy at night, but I never bought into the ghost stories. That night, I was doing my rounds around 1 a.m. when I heard whispering. It was soft, like someone muttering under their breath, moving from one aisle to another. I thought maybe a worker had stayed late or a trespasser had snuck in. I called out, "Who's there?" But the whispers just got louder, circling me like I was being hunted. Mike's training kicked in. He headed to the control room to check the security cameras, hoping to spot the intruder. He rewound the footage, his eyes scanning the screens. The cameras showed him walking through the aisles, his flashlight beam steady. But there was something else. In the corner of one frame, almost invisible, was a figure, tall, hunched, and motionless, standing at the end of an aisle, its head tilted as if watching him. My stomach dropped. That thing wasn't human. It didn't move right. It was on every camera, always in a different spot, always staring at me. I locked the control room door and tried to call my supervisor, but the phone line was dead. Then I heard it, knocking, slow and heavy, on the door. The monitors started glitching, and on one screen, I saw it standing right outside, its face pressed against the glass, smiling. Mike stayed in that room, praying for dawn. The knocking stopped just before sunrise, and when the morning shift arrived, the figure was gone. The cameras showed nothing. After 3 a.m., just static, as if the system had been wiped. Mike's supervisor dismissed it as exhaustion, but Mike knew better. He quit the next day and later learned from a coworker that the warehouse was built on the site of an old asylum, shut down in the 1970s after reports of patient abuse and mysterious deaths. Some workers believed the figure was a patient, still wandering the grounds, watching. Was Mike stalked by a restless spirit from the asylum's past, or something darker that claimed the warehouse as its own? If you're feeling the chill, brace yourself. Our next story will pull you deeper into the abyss. Story 3, The Motel Guest. Our third story comes from Rachel, a 22-year-old night clerk at the Desert Rose Motel in Nevada in 2020. The motel was a relic, catering to truckers, drifters, and the occasional lost traveler. Rachel was used to strange guests, people who paid in cash, spoke little, and left before dawn. But one night in July, a guest checked in who wasn't just strange. He was something else entirely. It was around 2 a.m., dead quiet except for the hum of the AC. This guy walked in, and right away, something felt wrong. His coat was soaked, but there was no rain that night. He didn't look at me, just muttered, "Room," in this weird, hollow voice, like he was mimicking a person. I gave him the key to room 13, the farthest from the office, and he shuffled out. An hour later, I heard noises from that direction. Scratching, like nails digging into wood, and this low, guttural humming, almost like a chant. Rachel tried to focus on her work, but the noises intensified, now joined by a faint tapping, like fingers on glass. She called room 13's phone, but it rang endlessly, no answer. Her gut screamed to stay put, but her responsibility as the clerk pushed her to check. She grabbed a flashlight and walked to room 13, each step heavier than the last. When she knocked, the door creaked open on its own, revealing an empty room. No guest, no luggage, just an oppressive stillness. The scratching and humming were coming from the bathroom, the door closed but leaking that eerie red light. I shouldn't have opened that door. The air felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing into me. Those symbols on the walls, they moved like they were breathing. In the mirror, I saw him, but when I turned, no one was there. The humming stopped, and the silence was worse. I ran back to the office, locked the door, and hid under the desk until morning. I kept hearing footsteps outside, circling the building, but I was too scared to look. When the morning manager arrived, they checked room 13. The bathroom was pristine, no symbols, no red light. The guest book showed no entry for that night, and the $20 bill Rachel had taken was blank. Just a piece of paper with faint, unreadable scratches. Rachel quit on the spot. Months later, she learned from a local trucker that the motel was rumored to be a way station for entities, things that weren't human, passing through on their way to unknown destinations. The truckers said room 13 was their favorite stop. What checked into room 13 that night? A lost soul? A demon? Or something beyond our understanding? We're deep in the darkness now, and our next story will drag you even further. Story 4. The Factory Shadow. This story comes from David, a 40-year-old machine operator who worked the night shift at a steel factory in Pittsburgh in 2018. The factory was a relic from the 1920s. Half abandoned, its upper floors sealed off after decades of disuse. Workers avoided the night shift, whispering about a presence they called the foreman, a shadow that watched from the darkness. David, a skeptic, thought it was just old machinery and tired eyes, until a night in March that changed everything. I was on the third floor, running the presses alone. Around 2 a.m., I got this feeling, like someone was standing behind me, staring. I turned, but the floor was empty. Then I saw it. A shadow on the wall, tall, maybe 7 feet, with arms too long for a person. It wasn't cast by anything, just moving, sliding along the wall like it was alive. I told myself it was the lights, but then it stopped and turned, like it was looking right at me. David's instincts screamed to run. He bolted for the stairwell, the shadow following, sliding along the walls and ceiling, matching his pace. The rasping became a guttural growl, vibrating in his chest. He reached the break room, slammed the door, and locked it. But the shadow didn't stop. It seeped under the doorframe, pooling on the floor like ink, reforming into its towering shape. It didn't have a face, but I felt it watching me, studying me. The air was so cold I could see my breath. I don't know how long I stood there, minutes, hours, but when the morning shift arrived, it was gone. The break room was normal, no trace of anything. My boss laughed it off, but I talked to an older worker, and he said it was the foreman. He said it's been there since the factory opened, tied to a supervisor who died in a machine accident in the 20s. They say he never left, still keeping an eye on the night shift. David never returned to the factory. He moved across the state, but the memory of that shadow haunts him. Workers still report sightings of the foreman, especially on quiet nights when the machines fall silent. Our final story is the darkest yet, so steel yourself. It's a descent into pure terror. Story 5. The Gas Station Entity. Our final story comes from Alex, a 19-year-old cashier at a gas station off Highway 87 in Montana in 2022. The station was isolated, miles from the nearest town, a beacon for weary travelers and strange drifters. Alex had heard tales of odd customers, people who didn't speak, who vanished before dawn, but he brushed them off as small-town folklore. That changed on a stormy night in October, when something walked into his station that wasn't human. It was just before midnight, and the storm was bad. Thunder, wind, the works. This guy came in, tall, maybe 6 feet 5 inches, his raincoat soaking wet. He didn't say a word, just stood there, staring at the floor. I asked if he needed help, but he didn't move. Then I saw his reflection in the glass door. It wasn't right. His face was wrong, like it was melting, shifting. His eyes were just black holes, and his mouth was too wide, stretching into this awful grin. Alex's heart raced, but he tried to stay professional, asking again if the figure needed anything. It didn't respond, instead gliding toward the counter, its footsteps silent despite the wet floor. As it approached, Alex saw its hands, pale, claw-like, with too many fingers. The lights dimmed and the figure's grin widened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. It reached out, and the station plunged into darkness. I hid under the counter, praying it would leave. I could hear it moving, its breathing like it was right next to me, wet and rasping. The lights came back on after what felt like forever, and it was gone. I checked the security footage, shaking. It showed me hiding, but the figure, it wasn't there. Instead, there was this black shape, like a glitch, moving around the counter, circling me. It wasn't on the outside cameras either, like it never left the station. Alex quit that night, leaving his keys on the counter and never looking back. The gas station closed a month later after other employees reported similar encounters. Customers who weren't there, reflections that didn't match, and that same black shape on the cameras. Locals say the land is cursed, built over an unmarked burial ground, disturbed during construction. Whatever it was, it left Alex with nightmares he still can't shake. Waking up to the sound of that wet, rasping breath. These 5 stories are a stark reminder that the night shift isn't just a job, it's a dance with the unknown. From phantom janitors to entities that defy reality, these accounts prove that when the world falls silent, something else stirs. Which story keeps you up tonight? Drop it in the comments. And if you've faced terror on a night shift, share your story. I might feature it next. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more true horror stories. Until next time, lock your doors, check your reflections, and maybe reconsider that graveyard shift.